Imagine this. Your phone disappears. No internet, no music, no movies, no books, no electricity, no games. Just you and the world around you. How long do you think it would take before boredom became unbearable? An hour? Maybe a day? Most people assume ancient humans must have been endlessly bored. After all, they lived without the thousands of distractions we surround ourselves with today. No endless scrolling, no streaming services, no social media notifications arriving every few minutes. By modern standards, their lives seem painfully repetitive. Wake up, find food, survive, sleep, repeat. But here's the strange part. Anthropologists who have spent decades living alongside modern hunter-gatherer societies almost never report boredom as a common complaint. In fact, many describe exactly the opposite. People laugh constantly. Children invent games from almost nothing. Adults spend hours telling stories, crafting tools, singing, dancing, joking, observing animals, teaching younger generations, and simply paying attention to the world around them. So what changed? Why do people today become restless after standing in line for 5 minutes, while our ancestors could spend hours watching a river or sitting beside a fire without feeling like they were wasting time? The answer isn't that ancient humans had less to do. It's that their brains were shaped by a completely different relationship with attention. And understanding that relationship may explain why boredom has become one of the defining experiences of modern life. To understand boredom, we first have to understand something surprising. For most of human history, boredom probably wasn't even an emotion. Not because life was exciting every second, but because the conditions that create boredom barely existed. Think about the last time you said, "I'm bored." Maybe you were waiting for someone. Maybe your internet stopped working. Maybe you couldn't decide what to watch because there were too many choices. Notice something? Boredom usually appears when your brain expects stimulation but doesn't get enough of it. Now imagine living 30,000 years ago. Every sound outside your shelter could mean food or danger. Every unfamiliar footprint mattered. The changing weather mattered. The movement of birds mattered. The direction of the wind mattered. Ignoring the world wasn't simply difficult. It could be fatal. Your brain evolved to notice tiny changes because tiny changes often determined whether you survived another day. The modern world asks us to ignore thousands of things every second. Ancient life demanded the opposite. Attention wasn't something you fought to maintain. It was your most valuable survival tool. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer communities have noticed something fascinating. Children rarely receive expensive toys. Instead, they create games using sticks, stones, leaves, mud, feathers, and imagination. A fallen branch becomes a spear. A rock becomes an animal. Footprints become clues in an imaginary hunt. What adults might see as ordinary objects become endless possibilities. This isn't because ancient children had better imaginations than children today. Human imagination hasn't suddenly disappeared. Our environment has changed. Modern toys usually have one purpose. Ancient environments offered unlimited possibilities. Every tree could become a fort. Every river became an adventure. Every hill offered a new view of the landscape. The world itself was the playground. Adults weren't very different. After daily tasks were finished, evenings often became social events. People repaired tools while talking. They shared hunting stories. Older members explained animal behavior. Songs preserved history long before writing existed. Some stories were entertaining. Others carried knowledge that could save lives. Which berries were poisonous? Where water could still be found during drought? Why certain stars appeared before seasonal migrations? What looked like entertainment was often education disguised as storytelling. Long before classrooms existed, knowledge traveled through conversation. Every generation became a living library, and unlike a book, that library could answer questions. Even silence had a purpose. Imagine sitting beside a fire after sunset. No engines, no television, no glowing screens, just the crackle of burning wood, the distant calls of insects, perhaps wolves howling somewhere beyond the darkness. To many people today, that silence would feel uncomfortable. But for ancient humans, silence wasn't empty. It was full of information. The direction of the wind, the movement of animals, the approach of strangers, the changing rhythm of the forest. Learning to listen wasn't meditation. It was survival, Modern life has almost erased this kind of listening. Today, many people instinctively reach for headphones the moment silence appears. No. Then something remarkable happened. About 2 centuries ago, human attention encountered its greatest challenge: machines, factories, advertising, electric lights, television, computers, smartphones. Each invention competed for the same limited resource: your attention. For hundreds of thousands of years, your brain evolved to notice novelty because novelty often meant opportunity or danger. Technology discovered that same system. Every notification, every short video, every endless feed, every recommendation, each one promises your brain something new. Not because every piece of information is important, but because your brain is wired to check. Neuroscientists sometimes describe dopamine not as the chemical of pleasure, but as the chemical of anticipation. It motivates exploration. It encourages curiosity. In nature, this system helped humans discover food, shelter, and safer paths. Online, the exact same system keeps us scrolling for just one more. The mechanism hasn't changed. Only the environment has. This may explain one of the greatest paradoxes of modern life. Never before have humans had access to so much entertainment. Yet surveys consistently show that many people report feeling bored more often than previous generations. How can that be? Because boredom isn't simply the absence of stimulation. Sometimes it's the consequence of constant stimulation. When your brain becomes accustomed to rapid novelty, ordinary experiences begin to feel unusually quiet. Reading becomes difficult. Walking feels slow. Conversation feels incomplete. Waiting becomes unbearable. Not because these activities became worse, but because everything else became faster. Our ancestors didn't need constant excitement. They found meaning in paying closer attention. Perhaps that's the skill we're slowly forgetting. Tonight, try something unusual. Leave your phone inside. Step outside after sunset. Listen carefully. You may notice wind moving through leaves, insects communicating in the darkness, the distant sounds of a neighborhood settling for the night. None of those sounds are new. They've surrounded humans for hundreds of thousands of years. What's new is how rarely we notice them. Maybe ancient humans weren't extraordinary because they never experienced boredom. Maybe they simply lived in a world interesting enough that paying attention was effortless. And perhaps the greatest luxury they possessed wasn't more free time. It was uninterrupted attention. Long before humans learned to entertain themselves with glowing screens, they learned something far more valuable: how to remain fascinated by reality itself. And maybe that's the one ancient skill still waiting for us whenever we choose to look up.